Hey, what do you say, ladies and gentlemen? Dan and I are excited to introduce our Buy Me a Coffee page. We've had a lot of listeners reach out and say, hey there, bub, we really appreciate what you do and want to support the show. Well, here's one way to do that without big corporations taking, 30% of the cut of your generosity. Just head over to www.buymeacoffee.com/BigBlueBanter and chip in if you'd like to support us directly. Every contribution means a lot, and it helps keep the show going strong. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for listening, and have a lovely day.
Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato, and that's number 2, the second coach firing in season for the Giants. You don't see this so often, but the Giants have decided to fire Shane Bowen as defensive coordinator of the New York Football Giants just 2 games into Mike Kafka's tenure as interim head coach. Clearly, this is something that was brewing. There's also been speculation that it's not just Mike Kafka's decision, that it's come down from above, maybe Joe Shane, maybe ownership. We know John Mara last offseason was basically like, this defense better turn around. I got to tell you, I didn't like watching teams go up and down the field on our defense. And then they still kept Shane Bowen, but there's only so many of these fourth quarter collapses you can take. And as you told me before the pod, Nick, and today we'll run through some film as we discuss this decision. But as you told me before the pod, you just couldn't believe that every single second down looked the same for the Giants as the Lions were trying to make that comeback. Off coverage, easy options for the Lions, and another loss for the Giants defense.
It was almost like the Lions, they were like, all right, on first down, we can try something different. Maybe it'll be a play action pass. Maybe we'll run the football. But down the stretch, late in the fourth quarter, when the Lions needed to drive down the field to get into field goal range, or possibly score a touchdown to win. Every time it was 2nd and 8, 2nd and 10, 2nd and whatever it was, the Giants would always drop to a deep zone. And every single time Jared Goff was like, deep post is removed, I'm just going to check it down. And then there was like a defender 5 yards off of whether it was Jahmyr Gibbs or Amon-Ra St. Brown or Brock or whoever the hell it was. They would catch the football and then they would pick up like 7 or 8 yards, get into a 3rd and 1, or pick up a first down. And that happened, I think, 4 different times. And then it was the Gibbs angle route against one of the Giants linebackers where I was like, oh, right when I saw Gibbs release in the angle he was taking, I was like, that's not a flat route. He's setting up an inside break. And it was an easy money throw, as you just said. And it's just, this has been a very predictable defense since Shane Bowen got, and it's interesting to me, Dan, right? Because let's go back to week 2, the second game where we got to see Shane Bowen as the defensive coordinator for the New York Giants last year against Washington. Our entire podcast, the All-22 podcast, was just us bashing Shane Bowen because the Giants, they were hamstrung in that game because they are the New York Giants and they're like, oh, we have a hurt 38-year-old kicker. Why not? Let's just not dress somebody else and we'll just put him out there. He gets hurt on the Giants offense driving down the field. They can't kick a field goal. So they're doing their thing. And the defense was holding up, but still, they were bend, don't break, and then they were efficient in the red zone. But the way they were bending just in the decision-making with that horizontal attack that Jane Daniels employed against the New York Giants with Cliff Kingsbury, it was like, why aren't we pressing up at all? Why is everything so soft? And has that not, like, soft is one of the best words in a variety of ways to describe this defense through the Shane Bowen era, from coverage standpoint and just from hey, man, when you need to be hard, when you need to be tough, when you need to execute. They just never did, unfortunately, right? They just never did through the Shane Bowen era. And, no one wants to call for coaches' jobs. We get that. I think everyone understands that at this point. But is this way overdue?
Oh, it's way overdue. And to me, what's interesting so much about this is it's the psychological factor of all this. And Jameis Winston touched on this a little bit after the game. He said these losses, blowing as many fourth quarter leads as we have, goes beyond the X's and O's. It's a psychological thing. And I really do believe it's so odd as to why I couldn't get behind the human psychology with Bowen or Dable, who I'm about to bring up in this example, as to why. But it does feel like both of those coaches coached insanely scared over and over and over again in times where coaching scared, coaching not to lose, ultimately wasn't the best decision. And in general, I'm not a big fan of coaching not to lose. I know it does work sometimes. Look, McVay and Reed have won a lot of games coaching scared, and so has Kyle Shanahan. But those teams have established rosters with core players that have bought into their culture and depth that plays well for them. When you're a team like the Giants and you are 2-9 or 2-8 or any of these games we've blown, whatever the record was at the time, coaching scared hasn't paid those dividends off. And I believe Shane Bowen coached scared a lot at the end of games. You even said at the beginning, like the difference between Shane Bowen coaching at the end of these games and the beginning of these games, not that he was some novel defensive coordinator at the beginning of these games, is stark. And it's obvious to see in Dable in a similar spot. Their jobs are on the line. Like, Shane Bowen knew his job was on the line going into this week and going into the last week too. And so did Brian Dable in his last game as coach. Dable kicks the 18.5-yard field goal from the half-yard line, and Shane Bowen does some of the similar things we've seen in those same spots. And I believe this decision that Mike Kafka made is in some ways a philosophical decision by him. He brought in an aggressive mindset to coaching the Giants. He told us, he told the media, he told fans, I am going to be aggressive with this opportunity. Some people don't like it. They didn't like him going for fourth down. He doesn't care. He's going to keep doing it. And now the Giants, I believe, are turning to a defensive coordinator who a lot of fans are skeptical about this decision and not giving it to Andre Patterson or Manuel, whoever, who I believe is going to bring in an aggressive mindset. I don't know that. I'm basing this off of two things, though. One, that his protege is Vance Joseph, who's one of the most aggressive coordinators in the NFL. And two, that I think this is what Mike Kafka wants. And I think this is what Mike Kafka believes he will get. Of all the coaches that he could have turned to start calling plays for the Giants, I believe that he believes this coach will be the one calling that brings the most aggressive mindset that aligns with his.
And that will be just a breath of fresh air when Charlie Bullen is who we're referring to, the Giants outside linebacker coach. I want to get into Bullen maybe a little bit later, but I remember when the Giants did hire him, it was Kayvon Thibodeau came out and was like, he had just nothing but great words to say about Charlie Bullen and his approach to teaching and all that. So I am looking forward to seeing exactly how the New York Giants what they look like defensively. Because, I mean, we beat this dead horse when it comes to Shane Bowen. This was a very similar approach. The execution still needs to be better. Like, if we're going to go over the film in a little bit with the Detroit Lions, how many times can these linebackers and these safeties more so just be put into a situation when Jahmyr Gibbs is running maybe like 19 miles per hour directly at them, and there's no defense. like people will give shit to Tyler Nubin, Dane Belton, and Javon Holland for the angles downhill, and it looks embarrassing, right? But I'm thinking about it from their perspective, and I think Holland had something to say about this after the game. He's like, the defensive line is getting blown off the ball. Like, Gibbs is not getting touched, and he is right there. He is right.
He's right there. Our defensive line is a culprit here that hasn't taken a lot of heat in this regard. Is
a massive culprit. In this podcast, we were on top of that heading into the season, that this could be the Achilles heel of the defense. Well, because there's really nothing behind Dexter Lawrence, which also reared its ugly head since Lawrence wasn't out there on that 69-yard touchdown run to start overtime, because he was dealing with he was nicked up as Mike Kafka.
He wasn't on the field for the 42-yard touchdown run either.
Yeah, and dude, like who else is behind him? Like Darius Alexander, we like what he did, 2 sacks. That's great. We'll go over that. Awesome. Not a run defender.
No.
Everybody else is replacement level. Raheem Nunez-Roches and Roy Robertson-Harris, they have their, like, I think Roy Robertson-Harris has played better than I expected coming here, but that's your number 2. That's a massive problem.
And
that
should be better in the pass game anyway than the run
game. Like the depth here on the defensive line is horrendous. It's been a problem since 2023 when the Giants traded Leonard Williams and they did not bring back A'Shaun Robinson. One of the reasons why I wanted to wait to get the Bullen is because I want to talk about this, because it pertains to Mike Kafka and the overall environment with the New York Football Giants. And it was a question that Bruce Beck asked today on Monday morning in the press conference with Mike Kafka about, is there basically resentment because the offense has played so much better than the defense has? And dude, I've been on football teams. I've been on hockey. I played sports my entire life. And I think Mike Kafka handled the question well. You're not going to be like, oh yeah, of course, man, the offense pisses the defense. I can assure you that the offense is freaking mad at the defense. I can assure you that the offense, now I don't know if it's crumbling or how much that's festering in the locker room, but these are human beings. When you can do your job, and you're talking about alpha males at the top of their profession, a national football player, and you consistently do your job, and then the defense just falters time and time again, there's going to be some resentment engendered. Now, I think there are times when the offense also does not hold their end of the bargain, and the defense comes up with certain stops. But as we always say, there's not complementary football, so there's going to probably be some finger pointing, and we're already seeing that within the defense with Javon Holland's comment about the defensive line. So that's kind of what I wanted to throw at you, Dan, because, you know, Mike Kafka is inheriting this. He was a part of the staff, so he's a part of it, but he's inheriting this mess now as a head coach. Now the defensive coordinator is gone. Now Charlie Bullen's coming in. This is now your one-time Mike Kafka to just completely flip this script. Like if you can pull off this win on Monday Night Football against the New England Patriots going into a bye week, then I think you can really start to entertain the conversation that Mike Kafka may have a chance to be the head coach beyond this season. But that happens and starts now with Shane Bowen out the door, because Shane Bowen was that big domino to fall from the Brian Daboll era and was a massive culprit as to why Brian Daboll failed over these last 2 years as well. So you cannot have that those types of conversations and finger pointing continue to proliferate around the locker room now that Bowen is gone. So I'm expecting a big change with Charlie Bullen as well.
I am, from a mindset standpoint.
Yes.
Yeah. As far as results go, that remains to be seen. They're just
thank you for clarifying that, because you're right. I'm on the same page.
Yeah, and I know you are. And look, Kafka does have an opportunity still. What has happened so far and transcribed so far has not hurt his case at all. I'm not saying it's helped his case to have a chance to be the Giants' next head coach, but it certainly hasn't hurt it. He literally was 13.5-point underdog to the Lions and took them to overtime. And as far as he's concerned, did everything he could to win the game. I mean, he absolutely dominated Kelvin Shepard and the Lions defense without much talent to work with on the offensive side of the ball. Let's be honest. And then the Packers was another game, one score. Now the Packers are the Packers. They have underperformed this year. I get it. It is what it is, but they're still a playoff team. So he does have an opportunity starting with New England. And then it gets really crazy, man, because it's a crap Washington Commanders team that might not be playing Jaden Daniels, might play him, and that would change but if it's Mariota and that crap roster that's been overrated but for the last 10 months by fans who were, they changed their ownership, they changed their GM. Look at it. That's not the only reason. No, Jaden Daniels was the only reason last year, and the level that he played at. Well, not the only reason, but 90% of the reason. And he's not playing at that level this year, hasn't. And then you got the Raiders, who are an absolute mess, and the Giants will actually go into that game favored, most likely. And you've also got, there's one more. The Vikings, the absolute disaster that is the Minnesota Vikings that just lose every game that JJ McCarthy starts, basically, with the exception of that first one against the Bears.
Dan and I are excited to talk about the Big Blue Banter group chat we've got going on with Chat BCC, the group chat platform where you can interact with fans and hosts of your favorite podcasts. We've been using Chat BCC to talk to our listeners about the hottest topics in football and just to kind of shoot the breeze about whatever's on our mind. Every day, one of us is in that chat giving our thoughts and hearing from listeners on their takes on what's going on in football, what's going on with the New York Giants. It's a lot of fun. If you want to come crash our group chat, it's as easy as sending a text. Head to BigBlueBanter.chat in any URL, enter your number, and start chatting with us and the Big Blue Banter faithful. Every year I stress about holiday gifting until I remember the one thing that never misses: Omaha Steaks. I've given it to family, and every time I get that same reaction, this is the best steak I've ever made at home. Yeah. This quality is unreal. Everything shows up perfectly packaged, and it makes me look way more put together than I actually am during the holidays. Facts. From hosting to gifting, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience. USDA certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, comfort meals, desserts, you name it. And right now, during their Sizzle All the Way sale, you get 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Their filet mignons are my favorite, aged for maximum tenderness, hand-cut by master butchers, backed by over 100 years of family expertise. It's holiday magic made easy. Plus, if you order by 6 p.m. Eastern Time, it ships the same day. Talk about convenience. And for our listeners, use promo code BANTER for an extra $35 off at checkout. Save big on gourmet gifts and holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their Sizzle All the Way sale and use code BANTER for an extra $35 off. Terms apply. See site for details. That's omahasteaks.com, code BANTER. Yeah, and those are three very winnable games. And to go back to what I said about a few minutes ago, if they pull off the upset against New England, who is one of the best teams in the National Football League, you're talking about setting up a pathway where Mike Kafka has a very solid case to present to Joe Shane, whom he already has a relationship with, to present to ownership, who will be like heavily incentivized to keep the continuity of the offense intact. And if Bullen does change something and Bullen's able to hold teams under 20 points with this personnel, then you're looking at possibly the coaching staff for the 2026 season.
So that's scary because I'm not going to make too much of Bullen holding the Commanders with Mariota or Geno Smith and the worst.
That's why a lot of it starts with New England.
It does. It
And I
does.
want to get into Bowen here in a little bit before we get into the tape and what happened against the Detroit Lions, because he, as you were saying a little bit ago, he has a unique background and one that does tend to at least give me the impression that he's going to be much more pressure oriented.
I'm hoping you're right. And I think, even if you are right, then we get into the second issue that I did want to expand on a little bit earlier, the personnel issue, and as it pertains to them. But I do want to touch on the first thing you said a little further. Like, that scares me because this is a reactionary franchise with reactionary owner, and they're not doing a good job, or they haven't in the last 10 years. I hope they don't let a sample size that includes a Mariota Washington team, a Geno Smith team with the worst O-line I've ever seen, basically playing football. And what's the other winnable game they have in there?
The
There's
Vikings.
one more. Oh, the Vikings. I
Yeah.
mean, stopping JJ McCarthy right now is about the easiest thing you can do. Out of all quarterbacks since like 2000, McCarthy has the second worst EPA behind Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah, it's tough.
That's how bad he's playing.
And I agree. And one of the reasons why I think that could be the case is because we're hearing some of the candidates that are coming out, and we know what's going on with John Mara at the moment. And I think maybe I don't know if they're going to be up for an extensive search. You're hearing names like Lou Anarumo and
who they've already interviewed, right? So they don't have to
put Arthur Smith. You know what I mean? So like that, like if Kafka were to do that, I agree. I want a very thorough process, and I think even if Kafka does have success, it doesn't necessarily mean he should be a shoo-in to get this job. But a lot of it might be contingent on his relationship with Jackson Dart, how this offense has performed the entire season, keeping the offensive staff intact. Now you could still get Lou Anarumo, and if Kafka is okay with keeping the OC spot, that could also plausibly be a direction.
I'd rather have Shula anyway than Anarumo.
Yeah, just whoever, right? Yeah, Chris. Yeah, I was really glad we got to watch the Rams defense last night. That was pretty cool to see them in action with Emmanuel Forbes balling out of his mind. Right. Chris Shula's saving. Maybe he could do something with Swayze Bozeman and Zaire Barnes at linebacker.
Right. Or he can find UDFAs that he likes better, that fit his scheme, and they can start to, impact right away. That's the thing. He's found guys with the Rams that impact right away on the defensive side of the ball. And they've had to lose talent as well. And they've been able to overcome that by, putting the right guys in the right spots. I'm still very high on Shula. It does scare me to some extent, like of bringing in a new offensive coordinator. That still is the most important thing. And I do believe in a few things with Kafka. One, his ability to scheme and game plan for a week. Two, his ability to string plays together and play calls at the right times. He's a little conservative at times. I don't love. He gets behind the run a little too much, but it is what it is. I feel like all coaches do. McVay does it. All the good ones do. And also, in addition to that, he's aggressive. I want an aggressive head coach. To me, I'd rather go down swinging than taking the points or whatever they say it is in spots and playing not to lose. But with that said, I do want to touch on the defense a little bit further as far as what's moving what to expect moving forward, and how much of this, because we've really harped on it, Nick. We've harped on how much we dislike watching Shane Bowen on tape, but the reality of the situation is, I can confidently blame Bowen for his end of the game coaching. And I think you can too, because we've seen it on tape over and over. And any mistakes they make in the pass game, I'm fine to blame on Bowen. But as far as the run defense goes, which is the number one Achilles heel of this Giants defense, we're last in the NFL now in run defense. To me, the burden falls harder, at least, on Joe Shane, because after that 2022 season, when we made the playoffs, it was so clear and obvious the Giants' run defense was the reason they couldn't advance in the playoffs. And it was the reason they weren't going to advance as a football team moving forward. Since then, dude, here's what he's done to help the run defense. And this is in 3 offseasons. That is a lot of time, Nick. That is 3 full draft classes, 3 full free agent classes. He's gone backwards, some would argue, and they'd have a strong case to argue, on the defensive line. He's traded Leonard Williams.
He definitely went backwards, I think.
Well, that's crazy to think about, Nick, because you have 3 off seasons. You should never go backwards. You shouldn't go backwards in 1 off season.
From a timeline standpoint, let's bring it to 2023, because after 2022, he poured some assets. He signed Bobby Okereke for the linebacker. Obviously, you still have Dex and you have Leonard, but then you go and you sign Ashawn Robinson as well, and you bring him in, and that's when he was there for 2023. But then after 2023, you allowed him and you traded Leonard Williams out the door, and then you And then you didn't really do anything after that on the defensive line until you drafted Darius Alexander and you signed guys like Roy Robertson Harris and players like that. So,
and I would even argue doing what he did at linebacker was not really doing much. You went from the worst possible position, the single stone worst linebacker core in the NFL, to adding one guy in free agency and then drafting 2 day 3 linebackers in 3 off seasons. That's 3 additions. 2 were day 3.
yeah,
On the D line, you signed Ashawn and let him go. That's not a plus. You got 1 year out of him. You traded Leonard Williams and you drafted 3 guys. 1 was a day 2 pick. 2 were day 3 picks. So the assets, they said 3 off seasons, and he's drafted 2 day 3 DTs, 1 day 2 DT. That's nothing. And he's drafted 2 day 3 linebackers in 3 off seasons. This is the reason Giants suck against the run. Like, it's Joe Shane. It could be Bowen, but some people are probably right when they say, you know what? Bowen did okay with the run defense in Tennessee. You know what? They probably have a point, Nick, because Joe Shane, that's a disgusting amount of resources to put up on your front 7. It's a despicable amount. To do what he's done at DT and linebacker in 3 off seasons is pathetic, really. And it's the main reason why we are the worst run defense in the NFL. It's not Bowen. As far as just pure, now, I still think Bowen should be fired, and he's the main culprit for the bad defense and all this end of the game stuff. But as far as that goes, the run defense, my blame lands on Joe Shane.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, we said all of this 6-7 months ago.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, you were so right, by the way, Nick, to say you were a lot more skeptical than I was about, what this would mean for the Giants in 2025.
And even with Dexter Lawrence, it's been bad, right? We said, right, something happens to Dex, and something did happen to Dex. He's not playing like the Dexter Lawrence that we've seen in previous years, but he's still a very good football player. There is nobody else next to him who can make a play that's a defensive lineman. The edge rushers, they're solid. But as we've seen, they've just been eliminated to the play side by crack tosses, right? Like, they just keep running crack toss and outside stuff to just eliminate them and flush them to the inside. And if you're one of those edge rushers, it's tough to defend against. If I'm one of those edge rushers and Khalif Raymond is trying to crack down on me, I am going to throw my shoulder into him so freaking hard to punish him for doing that. It's a tough situation, but there's no continuity on the defense. Personnel sucks. That is Joe Shane's issue. And then you just have individuals who are making plays, and safeties taking a lot of shit for chasing Jahmyr Gibbs up the sideline when nobody touched Jahmyr Gibbs for the first 15 yards, and he's running like 19 to 20 miles per hour. I think he clocked in at like 22 on full stretch on that one. I think it was the 49-yard touchdown one. It might've been a 69 one, but either way, it's just an absolute mess defensively. And, look, Shane Bowen, could you do some stuff to shut down the run? Sure. That's going to open up the play action pass. And that's going to open up other things. Shane Bowen is an unimaginative defensive coordinator. We've said it for a very long time now, but the run defense is a personnel issue, and that should not be confused.
Yep. Correct. And something that Cullen is going to have his work cut out for the rest of the season.
Yeah, man. Charlie Cullen, or Bullen, right? We're already getting
not Cullen.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of the,
we're already getting his name wrong. Yeah. Charlie Bullen.
Well, getting his name wrong.
Yeah, so he is now the interim defensive coordinator. He played quarterback, I want to say, in college. That's what his Wikipedia says. Wikipedia, I don't think it lies. And he spent a lot of time with Vance Joseph with the Arizona Cardinals. He spent some time with the Miami Dolphins. So he was in Miami with Joe Shane when Joe Shane was in the front office as a scout there. So somebody who's
time with my boy Brett Bielema at Illinois.
Yes, he spent some time with Brett Bielema.
Shout out Wisconsin Badgers for upsetting Illinois Fighting Illini this weekend. It's our shining moment of the season.
Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah, he was there for 1 year in 2023. And so Vance Joseph is aggressive. Vance Joseph's been with Arizona. He's the defensive coordinator now for the Denver Broncos, one of the best, if not the best defense in the National Football League. Has great personnel, but also as the Giants saw in the fourth quarter, I mean, the Giants kind of did a lot what they wanted to do offensively against the Denver Broncos defense. But this is somebody who is known for unique pressure packages and bringing the blitz. So I don't know how much of that is going to rub off on Charlie Bullen. I have no idea. Charlie Bullen's still going to be using the playbook of Shane Bowen. So what exactly does that mean? I expect some tendencies to be different. I'm hoping it's much more. I'm hoping that you just take risks. I'm hoping you play a little bit more YOLO here. You crowd the line of scrimmage and you really just attempt to manipulate offensive protections and get into the quarterback's head and have him just guess. Force that consternation, right? And also, Charlie Bullen has been with the great Kirk Ferentz. He was a graduate assistant at Iowa. Any chance I get to mention the Hawkeyes, I do. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
Yeah, and it really boils down to what you said, Nick. For me, I'm not looking for the next Giants defensive coordinator, or even for now with Bullen, and I will get that right. Bullen. I'm thinking of Charlie Cullen Bullen. Bullen for the next Giants coordinator. Bullen. I'm not looking for someone who's just going to ramp up our blitz percentage. I'm simply looking for someone who's going to put those defenders at the line of scrimmage at the snap and force the offensive line and the quarterback to guess where the pressure is coming from. And that's been the biggest problem, I think, in the Shane Bowen defense. And ultimately, it's the biggest reason why guys like Shula and Minter are up for defensive coordinator jobs, or I'm sorry, head coaching jobs, despite not having high blitz percentages. If you look, and I was surprised to see this specifically with Shula. Shula's, almost near the bottom as far as blitz percentage goes. Same goes for Minter. A lot of these great, head coach candidates. But the best thing you can do as defensive coordinator, and we saw this with Wink Martindale, though he was high up in blitz percentage, and so is Spags, by the way. It's crowd the line of scrimmage with your defenders and make the opposing offense guess where the pressure is coming from and where it's not. Force the opposing offensive line to potentially waste blockers and have a situation, which I see constantly with teams like the Rams and all these good, these great defenses, where you have offensive linemen blocking nobody because they didn't know where the pressure is coming from. And you end up getting these pressures with just blitzing, or not blitzing, but just rushing four guys. It's like putting 7 or 8 on the line of scrimmage, or 6 or 7 or 8 on the line of scrimmage. And it's because offensive linemen are wasted. They're not blocking anybody. And that's something Shane Bowen just really didn't do a lot of with the Giants, like shockingly almost, to an extent of like not making it hard for these opposing quarterbacks and offensive lines to guess where the pressure is coming from. And yeah, you want to disguise coverages. This is the other way to disguise coverages too. You have guys on the line of scrimmage. It's harder for a quarterback to figure out where the coverage is going to be post snap. So that's the number one thing I'm looking for from Bullen moving forward for these last final games and for the next Giants defensive coordinator.
Yeah, so Bullen, when he was with Arizona, was the outside linebackers coach from 2020 to 2022. So he was there for 3 seasons, had multiple 10-plus sack guys. Some of them, Chandler Jones was some. I think J.J. Watt that one year that he was in Arizona, and then Hassan Reddick as well. And here's a quote that Kayvon Thibodeau said when the Giants hired Bullen August of 2024 to be the outside linebackers coach. Kayvon said, Charlie Bullen has been a great asset to me and the rest of the guys in the room and continuing to kind of grow. Not just my ability on the field, but know what weight I want to play at, know what size, know what side of the ball I like, and just figuring out what works for me and kind of just honing in on it, using that as my strength. I think it's the consistency of greatness. It's understanding that, you know it, but let's just go over it 3 more times. I think that's the 10,000 hour mindset. That was his comments on Kayvon Thibodeau's comments on Charlie Bullen.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, this hire, Nick, has gotten a lot of or it's been somewhat controversial on Giants Twitter today. I've read a lot of opinions on it from prominent members of Giants Twitter. I tend to think we don't know as much as we think we do about the candidates, about, Andre Patterson, Manuel's called plays. How could they give it to him? Joe Shane has a connection with Bullen. Is that the only reason he got this job? Because Joe Shane, who knows, man? Do we really think we know that? And I think ultimately Kafka played a big role in this. He identified a coach that he believes is going to be aggressive. He identified a coach that he believes could have some upside. Like, we don't know. You can't rule out Bullen as a young defensive mind that could be a good defensive mind. It's just impossible to know right now. We've all had very limited information to work with when it comes to assistant coaches or anyone who hasn't called plays at the NFL level. It's a lot of a guessing game. So I'm going to defer to the Giants on this one. And I'm going to hope that everything we do know, which is the background he comes from, who he learned under in Vance Joseph, ends up playing a big role here. And as far as calling the right plays in the right times and, presenting different difficult situations for quarterbacks and offensive lines, we'll get the tape. So we'll have a chance to evaluate that. Unfortunately for us, it's going to come against guys like Mariota and Geno Smith with a bad O-line. So it's like it's a much easier job to do, but who cares? We'll take any progress we can get from this Giants defense.
Yeah, we will. We will. Yeah, there is overlap, as we said, which doesn't mean everything but there is overlap with Joe Shane and Bullen's time back in Miami. So he was under defensive coordinator Kevin Coyle. If I remember, trying to remember who else was the defensive coordinators at that time, just to get a little bit of paint a picture on
a picture.
A picture. Yeah, I still don't say that correctly, right?
You never will.
No, picture.
Yeah, it's a picture. There's a C in the word.
Nah, pitcher. Yeah,
it's a pitcher of beer. It's a pitcher on a mound. It's certainly not a pitcher that you look at.
I'm going to say it the way I'm going to say it, and
Yeah,
that's
and I
cool.
respect that. I
Yeah,
respect don't stand by your laurels here. Stand on
thank
your
you.
laurels.
Interestingly enough, in Miami, though, Lou Anarumo was the defensive backs coach in 2013 on the same staff with Charlie Bullen. So
Okay.
that could be, this could also be a setup for that. Lou Anarumo comes in, head coach, knows Charlie Bullen. Charlie Bullen falls back into the role that he had, maybe assumes an assistant DC role if he does well here. And then Mike Kafka goes back to offensive coordinator. But the only reason why I say that is because today, and I don't remember who it was, so I apologize. Somebody said that Lou Anarumo has moved ahead as the leading candidate. I don't exactly know what to read into with
Was
that
it
though.
Dunleavy? It was one of those guys.
The Mr. Ryan of Dunleavy's, maybe.
I'm
I'm
sorry
not.
if it wasn't you, Ryan. We should give the credit where it's due. I know there's a big, thing with the credit right now. I do respect the reporters on the Giants beat and the
Oh,
work
yeah, I
that they
saw
put
that.
in. I just don't know exactly who said that. I think it was Ryan Dunleavy who
Yeah,
reported
we're
that.
not trying to take it for ourselves. So I think
No, we're certainly not trying to take it for it. So we
yeah.
don't ever do that or care for that on this show.
And Lou was the interim defensive coordinator in 2015 with the Miami Dolphins as well, and Bullen was the assistant
Okay.
defense for whatever that's worth, if it's worth anything.
Yeah, that is a connection. Anarumo, who again is, according to one source at least, maybe the favorite for the job.
Yeah, man. So do we get into some of this Detroit Lions? Yeah, this Detroit Lions tape. I mean, we'll get into the tape a little bit, man. It was
Bowen's final stand.
Bowen's final stand. Yeah. The Giants blitz, I think, like 23% of the time. There was a little bit more pressure early on.
But it's that same crap pressure where they're not like it's not pressure that's confusing anybody.
Saw more 11 personnel, or not as much 11 personnel as last week with the Eagles, but I think it was 70% is what I had with the 11 personnel package. Saw some under fronts, which I felt like was interesting. When the Giants were facing like tight stacks, they would align in an under front because the tight stack basically would be towards, I think it was the left side, but the tight end would be on the other side. And under front is basically a 3 technique that is on the weak side instead of the strong side. And the Giants lined a to the strong side, there would be a 2 technique, meaning somebody directly over the strong side guard, strong side being the side of the tight end, the closed side. And then the Giants would stack the linebacker behind him to try to give him a free, I guess I don't want to say free release. That's more so what the offensive line would have, but try to prevent the offensive lineman from climbing up to him and locating him. Because the Giants, man, I'll say this, watching these linebackers, like Barnes had a few stops, right? He had a couple tackles for loss, but then you see him just run himself out of a fit. Sways Bozeman shouldn't be out there either. It's just Bobby Okereke. He had a couple nice plays where he made tackles along the line of scrimmage. I felt like the Giants against Jahmyr Gibbs fiddled technique, meaning a fiddle technique is when it's when the running back runs out to the middle of the field, and then 2 guys basically just sit on him. And if Gibbs went left, 1 guy took him. They basically tried to trap him, not allow him to have a free access to give him a 2-way go. You can't do that against Jahmyr Gibbs. He's going to absolutely cook you. The Giants were able to handle that early on. And you see this from the Giants defense sometimes, man. They'll come up and they'll stop you. And then once the offense gets the game plan around it, it's kind of over because the chess match always favors the opposing offense when you're going up against a Shane Bowen coach defense.
That's a good way to describe it. And that just checks out entirely with the reality we've lived in, which is we've given up all these leads in the fourth quarter by playing bad.
And the Giants, man, like, look, I'll give credit to these cornerbacks who are out there, right? Yeah, like Corey Black playing. Cordell Flott played a great game, by the way. Cordell Flott was in Jameson Williams' pocket. After the Jameis Winston interception, Cordell Flott came away with that PBU. It looked like he just got his hands on the football on that out route, that deep out route to Jameson Williams. So Fly is playing very well, and the Giants are going to have a decision with that. But other than that, you have Corey Black out there. Deontay Banks didn't play in this game. Drew Phillips got hurt partially in this game. He had a couple nice plays as well. But this is like, you're not working with a lot, and the Giants, they were in pretty damn good coverage for much of this game.
Yes, they were. There were a lot of times where it looked like, I don't want to say coverage sacks, but pressures based on the coverage. And I'll say this, I don't think the Giants should have a decision when it comes to Cordell Flott. He's 24 years old. To me, he's a must re-sign player. I feel very strongly about a lot of these players, man. Flott, Illuminor, to me, they're both must re-sign players. Once we get past that,
I'd bring back McFadden because you're going to get him.
McFadden, you'll get cheap. That's fine. Yeah.
Yes.
We need it. we probably have to just bring him back based on this disgusting linebacker situation. But
last year we were saying McFadden might have. We didn't want to fully commit to it. We were like, McFadden might be better than Bobby Okereke. We started like
Yes.
entertaining that, and then this year he gets hurt really early in the season. We don't see
Unfortunately,
that,
yeah. Because
unfortunately.
he could have been a big player. You're right. But so and then there's one other
Well,
big
there's
free
Dane
agent.
Belton, but Dane Belton, I
No,
don't know if
there's one
he's
other big free agent I'm playing.
Bellinger.
Belton, I don't think is going to come back. I can't. I'll go into this. Is fun. Doesn't really matter. I golfed with a friend. I shouldn't even talk about this
Oh, and I
story. I
need
think I told you
you need
this.
to tell me off pod though.
I've told you this before, haven't I?
Oh,
I
okay.
tell you
So
about when I
I thought it
golf
was a
with
new.
somebody who's friends with Dame Belton and Micah McFadden. They're good friends too, by the way, off the field.
Oh, I see them all the time at certain events.
Yeah, let's just
Those
put it
two.
this way. I
Yeah.
don't think Belton loved his role going into the season, though. Now he gets to play a lot, so maybe things have changed. No, he felt like he should have been playing more. But as far as there's one more big free agent that I'm blanking on. Why am I forgetting it outside of Illuminor and Flott?
Wandell.
Oh no, Wandale. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we'll talk about him on the offensive film review. But as far as I'm concerned, Flott is at 24 years old, just developing and potentially just scratching the surface of who he can be.
Yeah.
Is close to a must resign player for me.
I agree. I mean, you don't really have much behind him. You wasted a first round pick on Tay
Right.
Banks, so you should,
Right.
especially if it's Joe Shane. He is incentivized to.
And we don't want
resign
to put ourselves in a
real Flott.
position, by the way, Nick, where we've been at in the past where we decide, okay, we won't resign Flott. He's too much money, whatever it may be. And then we're like, oh, we have this massive need again at corner. I guess we have to use our first round pick on Deontay Banks and trade up to make sure nobody gets him with that one pick before us. Like anyone was trading up for Deontay Banks or whatever it was. So like, I don't want to put Shane or whoever the GM is back in this like dire position at any position, but corner especially.
Yeah. So here are some plays that we can go over. Some
Sure.
pressure plays, some blown run fits by the New York Giants. This first one right here is just it's a 2nd and 7 early in the game, first quarter, 9:20 left. We have I felt like the Giants did a really good job on this play, just getting pressure and then just nailing. I think that's Brock Wright to force an incomplete pass on a 2nd and 7. And you could see right at the snap, it's a play action, and the Giants blitz Demetrius Flanagan Fowles ended up getting injured in this game right through the A gap. And if you look at the center, I'm wondering if the center had like a check on him. The Giants must have disguised it well because the center is going after the 3 technique next to him, which is, I believe, Dexter Lawrence. So no, it's not. It's actually DJ Davidson. So he goes to help, and nobody even accounted. So it might have just been a miscommunication on the Lions' offensive line. You see the A gap go open. Jahmyr Gibbs does enough to get a hold or just like a hit on Flanagan Fowles, and then Goff releases the football, and Bobby Okereke is right there to knock it out of the grasp of Brock Wright. But good pressure initially from the Giants defense on a 5-man pass rush. And we're going to have the 3rd and 7 sack by Darius Alexander. And this is like a really important sack. And this is why I wanted to mention Dan earlier, just like, I know the defense sucks and the defense is a big reason why the Giants are losing a lot of these games, but there are moments where the defense like makes a play, and it's a very important play and a very consequential play because Detroit is in field goal range, and Darius Alexander just great move to the half man to sack Jared Goff, and then they had to punt the football after this. They came away with their first drive with no points because of this Darius Alexander sack.
Yeah,
you can see the wide angles. You have Abdul Carter going up against Taylor Decker, tries to stretch. Doesn't really, but it doesn't really matter because that's a great move by Darius Alexander to get to the half man, push back, dip the inside shoulder. Looks like Goff felt the pressure too, right? Like a little bit.
He just didn't have time to do anything about it.
He's looking around. I think it was a late release, maybe by the tight end. And Brian Burns, again, this guy just never stops. And this forces. And again, this is like the problem with the defense. Is 2nd and 1. The Detroit Lions are on the 1-2 yard line, and it's an intentional grounding force because Brian Burns almost sacks Jared Goff, and so does Abdul Carter. So he throws it away, gets the intentional grounding, and then on the next play, it's like 3rd and 11, as we'll go over. And it's a screen touchdown because the Giants can't tackle, right? And they're not aligned, I would say, appropriately on that play. And it was a great play design and call by Dan Campbell as well. But as you're watching it here. We'll go over it in a second. As you're watching it here, like this is just harassing defense by the Giants, though. Like again, 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
It was close to also being like the 3rd week in a row, though, where the Giants gave up a touchdown on a pick play because that running back was wide open. Burns just made a great individual play.
Exactly. And that's the thing. And this is something that the Lions were doing. The Lions were trying to run like make Burns the read defender so he doesn't
Yep.
impact the play. But Brian Burns is so freaking good at
I
football
know.
that he still impacted the play. There was the
I mean,
one.
Carl Banks really believed from watching this film that Brian Burns is playing at a totally different level than anyone on this defense.
Oh,
Dex,
easy,
Abdul
easy.
Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, all the good players.
I think that's
I think
yeah,
it's probably
easy.
true.
Yeah, I think he's playing at an all pro level. Like little plays like, hey, we're gonna run a jet sweep. We're gonna try to get Brian Burns to step inside. He doesn't step inside. They try to jet sweep it to Jahmyr Gibbs, and he's just blown up, right? Because Brian Burns was that read defender. And then you have the play that we just played where it was a little play action. Brian Burns right at Jared Goff. Very rare to see him not come away with that sack, but either way, it's an impactful play. And now we have a 3rd and 11. And you see the motion that brings the cornerback over. And then I just love how the Lions stepped to the left. They stepped away from the screen, went into the mesh point, and you're going to see how the Giants react to that. They all step left as well. You see Burns and Dex and the linebacker all take that step to the left, and then they throw the screen. Burns just misses it, and the blocking is just way too good. And Amon-Ra St. Brown found his way in the end zone, and it's just like, of course, man.
Well, so to me, this is a total indictment on Shane Bowen here. And so let's roll it back to the start of the play and pause it there. This is the microcosm of why the Giants defense, to me, has been such a failure this season. For starters, this play by the Lions, in my mind at least, is designed to set up a 4th and goal attempt. It is not designed to get 11 yards from 3rd and goal. But when you're facing a team like Shane Bowen, who's just willing to just eliminate defenders from a play, despite the fact that you are in the red zone and you have the back of the end zone as essentially operating as safeties, at least the way I see most of the good defensive coordinators use the red zone. You do not need 2 safeties playing where they are on this play. And from an alignment standpoint, the Giants have so few defenders to stop this screen. They have to flow over. Plenty of these defenders have to flow over they're behind to start, and they have to flow over to try to make this tackle. And it allows these blockers to set up. It allows the blocks, I should say, to set up. That's bullshit. That's on Shane Bowen. We don't need to have 2 safeties standing at the goddamn goal line on this rep. Put everyone up on the line of scrimmage, or at least at the very least, like, have 1 safety coming downhill here or rotating down or anything. Like, it's just, he doesn't do a good job, in my opinion, here of playing the down and distance at all, or understanding what the back of the end zone means to his scheme. Like, you literally do not have to worry. Like, I just don't understand what the point is of this split safety look here in the red zone.
I mean, I agree with you. Yeah. And I also think that the play calling fooled the linebacker who shouldn't be out there on Sunday either. Like,
but it shouldn't just be like one guy can get fooled and an 11-yard screen can happen. That's like kind of what I'm so angry about here, Nick. Like, yeah, that can happen on a given play where like a bad linebacker can get, the eye candy can trick him and he can go in the flow in the wrong direction. But you should still have an advantage from a player standpoint when you're in the red zone as a defense. Shane Bowen takes away that advantage by aligning the defense like this before the snap.
It also pisses me off that, like, you have Monty in the game here, right? So David Montgomery and not Jahmyr Gibbs. When Amon-Ra St. Brown goes over, you have the coverage on him. I would like there to be some sort of shift towards Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is a massive threat at this point, which is to the strong side of the play anyway.
Yeah, like, once Amon-Ra St. Brown,
what I would like to see, though, man, is like Dane Belton push Javon Holland down, get another body down there in the box where that massive threat is, and now you have Dane Belton occupying more of a middle of the field role.
For me, what's just so frustrating is what you said. If Amon-Ra St. Brown is motioning from left to right there, then what is the point of having that extra safety over the top of one outside receiver? You can't trust the boundary cornerback to play him one-on-one in the red zone. And it's essentially like, it feels like we're playing a man down on this play.
Yeah. Well, given the play design that was actually run and the counter off it, obviously it's not a counter run, but just the fake. Yeah, it hindered the Giants, and the Giants, I guess, wanted, I don't know what exactly is going on. I don't have the angle of what's going on the outside to the left, but
just one boundary receiver with a corner over the top. Like,
I'm guessing they're probably playing the sticks. That's what I've seen Shane Bowen do a few times. They're playing the goal line and they're trying to force but the tackling just never. This was the perfect play call for that, and I'm sure it's because Dan Campbell watches film and he knows what the Giants are going to do. And the Giants weren't.
It's just so frustrating, man. This just not the best way to stop that play.
Yeah. Now here we're going to see a 3rd and 10. The Giants get off the field. This is the second sack by Darius Alexander, which was really facilitated by Dexter Lawrence. The Giants bring a 5-man pressure. You can see the coverage on the back end. Again, good, man. The Giants staying over the top. Now there is a busted coverage at the bottom of the screen, as you'll see,
Yeah,
but
that he just doesn't see.
at that point, it's a little bit too late. But I'm guessing I don't know what's going on with Corey Black and Drew Phillips. They both assume the vert and nobody takes the flat, so you got to fix that up. But you'll see what Dex is able to do here from the one tech. Just push the center back. Burns and Abdul Carter both quickly win, get into the backfield, kind of, and then he runs right into Darius Alexander, who does an excellent job lagging here, like not trying to press. And I'm wondering if that was a coaching point. We saw Wink Martindale used to do this, right? But off of interior pressure, they blitzed Dane Belton, picked up well by Jahmyr Gibbs, but Alexander gets his second sack, and then the goofy dance that they all did. Now let's get into some bad tape, Dan. The 49-yard rush for Gibbs. It didn't go for a touchdown, but set up the touchdown throw on the subsequent play. 2nd and 1. Dude, no one touches him. This is just, it's just insane, man.
Yeah.
Dane Belton somehow is able to track him down, which was impressive enough. But you'll see, you have a extra offensive lineman in the game here, and then a tight end. So you have and this is something the Giants just cannot defend whenever you overload one side, specifically to the backside. Here you put an under front out there again, but you have 3 down linemen, so you end up having a 4 technique on the offensive tackle. You have a 3 technique on the backside with Roy Robertson Harris, and then a 1 technique. That 1 technique just gets gobbled up. That's Rakeem Nunez-Roches by the double team, as you'll see. And then everybody else just ends up getting blocked up, but you'll see how Gibbs presses, and then finds that backside cutback lane that is always freaking there. And Bobby Okereke or Zaire Barnes cannot get over. Barnes gets sucked way too close to the line of scrimmage, allows Dan Skipper to execute the block, and now he cannot collapse down with Bobby Okereke putting his hips in the outside, the cutback lane. And there's just no one there. And at this point, it's just Javon Holland who has a terrible angle to attack this. He can't exactly see where Gibbs is. He knows Gibbs went to the inside, so he's going to fill to the inside, but then that allows the cutback lane since Barnes wasn't in position. So it's just like, of course, right? Like it's one of those things where it's like, how many times can we watch run defense falter for the New York Giants in a bunch of different ways, even though it's still like that same exact formation that they struggle to fit, which is the overload.
Yep.
And here's a touchdown pass to Gibbs. Yeah, man. And this is what really pissed me off, man. The next play that we're about to go over was the 23 seconds left in the first half, the 2nd and 6, and they allow Raymond up the seam to make that field goal so much easier for Jake Bates. Like the Giants, man, like they're in this situation like, yo, don't allow them to score points. You know, every point is valuable. And Khalif Raymond just releases and stems outward and sets it up against this cover 3 defense. And Dane Belton is just in a place where he does not relate to the route, right? You have an underneath defender here with Gibbs. And I know that's a tough assignment for this linebacker. So maybe he was wondering if he was going to go vertical because this is a match type defense here. But he just sits there and you have outside leverage from Drew Phillips. I believe that's Drew Phillips in the slot against Khalif Raymond. Raymond sets it up well. And then the inside help is just not there. And is that just not the story for this pass defense? The inside help is not there. How many times, Dan, is the inside help not there?
Yeah, a lot.
It happens all the time, man. And he's just eyeing it down. He knows it's going to be open the entire time, Jared Goff. When Goff catches, he sees the safety go to the middle of the field. He's like, I'm just going to effortless. And it's Nick Jones, not Drew Phillips. That's just annoying, man. And here's that nice cover 2 hole shot to Amon-Ra St. Brown, 1st and 10 in the 3rd quarter. I mean, he's going up against Corey Black. Corey Black just gets lost in this one. He's, I guess, waiting possibly for the cover 2. You see the inverted cover 2. It's something the Giants ran a decent amount in this game, was this inverted cover 2, drop middle of the field close, try to disguise your coverage a little bit. Corey Black gets brought in towards the numbers, but nobody is latching on to Amon-Ra St. Brown and ran an out and up, and he's wide open for a big gain. You'll see wide open, easy pitch and catch. Here we're going to have the 49-yard touchdown run on a 2nd and 5, just this time he gets touched by Dane Belton, but, you know, it's missed tackle after missed tackle. The inexcusable type of stuff, Dan. Easy touchdown for Jahmyr Gibbs. But again, if we go back to the line of scrimmage, you have 1 technique, you have a 3 technique, and it's going to hit that A gap, or he cuts back to the B once Bozeman works to the A, and then Black isn't quick enough to get over, but he's the secondary, and Dane Belton doesn't execute his run fit. And no one can tackle. That's just, it is what it is, you know?
Yeah, it's their worst play of the game.
Yeah. There's a 2nd and 11. Jahmyr Gibbs, this is late in the fourth quarter when Lions are backed up, right? Because the Giants just did not get the touchdown. So soft coverage, 2nd and 11. Jahmyr Gibbs gets him into a, I think like 3rd and 1 situation. And here's the overtime run. Just everything was soft on that in that sequence, but here's overtime. Just nobody even touches Jahmyr Gibbs the entire time. It's just inexcusable type shit, dude.
Crazy.
Yeah. All the way to the house. Like, I don't even, like, no Dexter Lawrence out there. You have DJ Davidson on the field with who? I think it's Nacho, and the Giants slant, right? They slant to their defensive right, and the linebackers also step that way. And Bozeman just keeps going. He just keeps going to the defensive right. Bobby Okereke tries to set up into the right to eliminate that rushing lane, but look how wide the other rushing lane is, dude. Like there's no continuity with it. And DJ Davidson, he runs like 3 yards upfield, 1 yard horizontally as well, just out of the play completely from that run fit perspective. It's tough. And then Dane Belton's like, I got to do this again. I got to, you know what I mean? It's rough, guys. But yeah, those are all the defensive plays.
Yeah, a lot of ugly plays this week on the defensive film, but hopefully it's a new era moving forward. Not era, but new, fresh look moving forward with Bullen, Giants defense coordinator. We'll find out, right? Monday Night Football game this week against the New England Patriots, minus Will Campbell, their left tackle. And I don't think their left guard is playing either, the kid from Georgia. So should be advantageous for Darius Alexander coming off a 2-sack game. Was it 2 or 2.5? I don't remember.
It's 2.
2. Okay. And should be advantageous for Brian Burns. And maybe Kayvon Thibodeau will be back for that game as well. Should be, I said. We'll see. Yeah. Anything else on this Giants defense before we turn the page?
Nah, man. Shane Bowen fired. We'll see what Charlie Bullen can do over the next 5 games.
Yep.
Has an extended week now with the Monday Night Football. We'll have a extra week after this game to regroup and see if the Giants can remain competitive, but actually finish for once. Because they have been competitive all season. You know, I'll give them that. It's just they just cannot finish whatsoever. Nope. That's the story of the 2025 season.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you to everybody tuning in. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please leave a comment on this video. Help us grow the show. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll talk to you soon.